in the excellent company of prolific columnist for The Sun, The Sunday Times, and The Spectator, Rod Liddle. Welcome, Rod.
Hiya, how you doing?
I'm all right, mate. I also should, of course, as I always do, mention that you present Times Radio's smash hit Saturday morning show from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. So
the radar figures are hung like a moose.
Yeah, they certainly are, but I'm not talking about them myself for technical reasons. Right. Well, actually, we did all right, but you know what I'm saying. Right. Let's talk about Keir Starmer. Now, he, the big burning issue of the moment, now that we're discovering that more and more of our asylum seeker friends seem to be responsible, at least allegedly, for more and more sex crimes, charged with rape, sexual assault and so on and so forth. This is very incendiary for local communities. You can understand that. Ask the people of Epping, the people of Portsmouth, and an increasingly large number of neighbourhoods. Now, the point is that in Nuneaton, two asylum seekers from Afghanistan stand accused of raping a local 12-year-old girl. Now, the police, the Warwickshire police, sort of proudly said, no, we didn't mention that they were asylum seekers or they were from Afghanistan because that's national policy. Great. So it's national policy to keep us in the dark about this. Keir Starmer has, in the light of this, urged the police to help, and I quote, rebuild trust by releasing more information about criminal suspects. And he insists that the cops should be as transparent as possible. What do you mean? Do you think he means by that, Rob? Because that is vague language taken to its extreme, if you ask me. I think that the authorities, I think Keir Starmer, the police and everybody, local councils, they still want to keep this kind of stuff under wraps to make sure that the public don't find out about it and don't get appropriately annoyed. Your thoughts?
I think the public's twigged it. I mean, we've been lied to for somewhere in the region of 50 to 60 years about immigration. And every time anyone complains about immigration, the great wicker man of Enoch is wheeled out and set fire to, and you're not allowed to say it anymore. You're a racist.
Racist.
Yeah, racist. But we've been lied to about how many people are coming to the country, and that won't be revealed. And then we're lied about what effect the immigrants have when they come to this country. And it's only very recently, now that the public is getting angrier and angrier about this. So we're beginning to find out that if you're an Afghan asylum seeker here, you are 20 times more likely to be charged with a sexual offence than if you're a British, indigenous British. And that overall, you're far, far more likely to be charged with a sexual offence if you're an immigrant in the first place. 18 times more likely to be charged with theft if you're Algerian. I didn't know the Algerians went around nicking stuff all the time. But
no, that's news to me. That's a bombshell.
A bombshell, isn't it? Yeah. So they've kept lying to us. Now, I couldn't happily leave Starmer out of this. He is not the architect of the deceit that we've been subjected to for the last decade after decade after decade, that all immigration is good. Immigration is good for the economy. No, it's not. Low-skilled immigrants cost this taxpayer £150,000 per person. 150. That we found that out from the Office for Budget Responsibility recently. £150,000 per person. That's if they live to the age of 66. If they live to 80, it's 500,000.
Well, they're going to live to the age of 80, Rod, because there's no pressure in their lives. They don't have to get jobs.
Yeah.
And we give them everything for free. So that's the kind of recipe for a long life that is bound to work, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And, again, Kev, we were told... I don't know if you remember that the various right-wingers over the past 40 years have said we're going to be outnumbered in our own country soon, and they were shouted down as absurd racists. No, we're going to be outnumbered in our own country by 2063, according to all of it is true. All of it has come true.
Let's talk. There's a guy concerning the Nuneaton alleged rape that.
Isn't this sub judice?
It's an alleged rape, so we can talk about this. This is what has got the local community extremely energised, as you can imagine. Now, George Finch is the leader of the local council, the Warwickshire County Council. He's somewhat...
Is he the 18-year-old?
Yeah, he's undermined by... Everybody always said he's 19 years old. Well, he is 19, but I think he's quite impressive. Here he is talking about the Nuneaton issue, if we can put it this way.
And I was told that if I released this, I would be in contempt of court, and that I cannot release this due to this phrase, community cohesion. That's the problem. They're trying to cover up the minority, the people that are coming over on boats illegally, and the people of Nuneaton are hurt. They've had enough, and that's why I'm urging all council leaders from all parties to join me in campaigning to stop the housing of illegal immigrants in HMOs with Serco and the illegal immigrants in hotels.
And what he's done, Rod, is he's challenged that cretin Richard Hermer, the Attorney General.
Yeah, Hermer's a moron.
The total moron Attorney General. He's challenged him, said, if this is a contempt of court, why don't you arrest me? Why don't you charge me? And they won't, and I'll tell you why, because it isn't contempt of court. That cannot prejudice a trial. Knowing that these people are asylum seekers, that will come out on day one of the court case. So knowing this, it's not contempt of court. And old George, I think, has played a bit of a blinder here, because I think
he has. But that doesn't count. That doesn't alter the fact that he's 19 years old and he should be out. What's the phrase from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? He should be out banging beaver rather than actually leading a council.
Well, he may be doing that as well. He's probably he's a multitasker, Rod. Come on.
Of course he is. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, and again, we've been lied to. So for the last 25 years, when someone has gone mad in London and stabbed 7 people to death, we are not told their ethnicity, except to be told that they're probably Norwegian or mentally ill.
Yeah. Or in the case of Axel Rudikabama, a lad from Cardiff whose family whose family moved north.
Guy Abu Kabana.
That well-known Welsh name. I mean, seriously, but you see, this is why Starmer's in trouble here, because him, shall we say, presiding over a wide-scale economy with the truth last summer surrounding the Southport saga. This is what puts him in big trouble this year. Now, let's just analyse for a second, if we can, this phrase he's come out. First of all, he's telling the police to help rebuild trust. Well, the trust was destroyed by him last summer. And secondly, he insists that cops should from now on be as transparent as possible. What we're looking for, Keir, here is for you to say that from now on, when asylum seekers or migrants are arrested and charged with sex crimes in particular, in fact, all major crimes, the public should be told.
Well, we should know the ethnicity of everybody who commits a crime.
Yes.
We should know it.
Yes.
Because that helps us to sort out where crime occurs and how we might stop it. But we stopped doing that about 20 years ago because it was too incendiary. So they thought it was racist, and it was around about the time actually that Crime Watch stopped being broadcast, which I always put down to a blog I did for The Spectator, which accused them of racism. Because when they had that rogues gallery thing, you couldn't find a white bloke anywhere in it. You couldn't find...
What was it called? Ethnic Crime Watch, yeah.
That's right, yeah. That's so when people used to say, that ethnic minority people are underrepresented on television, my reply was always, not on Crime Watch.
Yeah, those were the days. You don't get that anymore, do you? No. I mean, this is...
I don't blame Starmer for this.
He's inheriting the mantle, but here's the deal. What worries me about this Labour government is they are extending the remit, if you like, of what constitutes contempt of court. So they're saying that if someone is arrested for some alleged offence. In fact, like the guys in Nuneaton, we should stress they've only been charged. No doubt will deny the alleged offences. We're only saying that. It's just that people didn't know who they were. But the Labour government is trying to sort of say that as soon as someone's arrested, like they did with Rudy Cabana, we can't talk about it. That could prejudice the trial. Well, you and I both went to, were in our days junior reporters. And the first thing you learned that until someone is charged, there is no court case. Therefore, you cannot be in contempt of court.
Charges pending or imminent. I would dredge up my law exam for Thomson Regional Newspapers in 1980.
Yeah.
I think it was charges pending or imminent was the thing. But no, it's nothing to do with contempt of court. Well, it's to do with not telling the public stuff, and it's been to do with not telling the public stuff for decades.
Yeah, and what George Finch said, community cohesion. This is the phrase being used around, and this is what Keir Starmer.
Community cohesion would be a hell of a lot better if there weren't those Afghans in Nuneaton. That's
exactly right. But Keir Starmer and the Labour cabinet, the Labour government, and the police and everybody—they're terrified of a repeat of last. I mean, we've already got signs that we will have a summer of worse riots than we've seen so far. They're terrified of it, and their way of dealing with it is to keep secret information about migrants or asylum seekers who may have allegedly committed serious crime, especially sex crimes. So they try to throw a veil of secrecy over it, and that is an absolute recipe for disaster, because the British public have a habit of finding these things out, and then you've got two-tier problems, if I can put it that way. One, the fact of the matter in itself, that the alleged culprits, suspects, are foreign people who broke into this country illegally. And secondly, you have the incendiary fact that the government tried to keep it secret.
But yes, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, there are a number of ways you know when an ideology is on its last legs. First is when they refuse to tell you anything because they're so scared of what it will mean. And second is when they react with a kind of blind paralytic fury when challenged. So, for example, that teacher, I think his name was Simon Pearson, who was sacked.
I interviewed him last night.
Yeah, well, you can try to counter his argument, but they don't do that. They're just sacked because they know that if it's exposed to the truth, he will be found out to be true.
Teacher of 20 years experience working at that college. His job was to teach many migrants and asylum seekers how to speak English. That was his job. He's accused now of racism and Islamophobia. Do you know what the poor guy... I mean, do you know what he's doing now? Do you know what he's doing now? And I don't say this in a pejorative way, but he's training to be a bus driver. His career has been stolen from him.
That is appalling. I mean, I don't think he should be teaching migrants how to speak English. I think if they don't speak English, they shouldn't be here.
Yeah. But it's just to highlight that to accuse this guy of racism
I know it's an absurdity. But there is a bright spot on the horizon. We were told for ages that British attitudes to immigration have been softening, i.e., getting more gullible. And that was certainly true, largely because people have been lied to about the numbers coming in, about the crimes that they commit, about their value to society. But the latest YouGov poll shows figures which I couldn't have imagined 50, 60 years ago. 45% don't only want no new migrants from anywhere, but also want them sent back. The ones that are here sent back. 45%. That is remarkable.
Well, it's changing times. But listen, don't worry about the migrant crisis or the asylum seeker hotel crisis, because it's almost over. Because Keir Starmer and Macron have forged this amazing swap a foreigner deal where we're going to be sending migrants back to France. It's an impeccable contract. I can't see anything going wrong with it at all. And we'll discuss that after these messages. Stay where you are, Rod. And Times Radio broadcaster, presenter Rod Liddle. Rod, let's talk about this swapper migrant deal. Very, very odd. The first thing to say about it is, I mean, I don't think they will ever get a migrant back to France due to the fact that the proposal is this. It came into play today, and by tomorrow is supposed to be up and running full scale. So from now on, when these migrants, when our asylum seeker friends arrive on our shores, instead of being put into 4-star hotels, they will be taken to Manston Airport in Kent to the processing centre, where some of them, 1 in 17 we understand, the unlucky ones, will be chosen and then sent to an immigration processing centre from where they will be a removal centre rather in advance of a chartered flight back to France. Well, here's the deal. First of all, the immigration lawyers are going to have a field day with this. Any immigration lawyer is going to say, well, hang on, you chose my client out of 17 people. Why? Isn't that a little bit unfair? Can you explain the fairness of this process? No court is going to deny him that challenge to this law. No. And secondly, Keir Starmer also announced that this deal will only go on for 11 months anyway. He didn't mention that at the press conference, did he?
No, he didn't.
This scheme, as I keep saying, I'll bet anyone 50 quid that we never get a single migrant back to France on the basis of this.
But even if we do get a migrant back to France on the basis of this, and I entirely share your doubts about it, especially with regard to the lawyers, it's not going to it's 1 in 17.
Yeah. Still worth a roll of the dice, isn't it? They go, oh, that's a deterrent, because all the migrants will go, oh, what if I'm the unlucky 1 in 17? Well, actually, that's worth a whirl, isn't it? That's worth a go.
Well, I buy lottery tickets, I mean, it's obviously worth a go. So it doesn't do anything. I mean, he's given up on cracking the gangs.
Smash the gangs.
Smash the gangs. Yes, that's right. Smash the gangs. He's given up on that. Rwanda was a far better idea than either of these he's come up with.
Yeah.
Even though Rwanda had its own flaws, I'd say St Helena would be a better idea.
Yeah.
Send them to St Helena. It's within British jurisdiction. Or better still, just make it absolutely plain that no matter what their legitimate claims are, as they would see them, to having a right to stay in this country, nobody who tries to come here illegally will be allowed to stay.
Exactly.
That is the one thing to do. Nobody, none. You immediately lose all your points, Yeah,
you're right about that. I hadn't really sort of thought about that angle. I mean, basically what Starmer's saying is for every 17 migrants, 16 will be allowed to stay. And numerically, this is a non-starter anyway, isn't it? What we're trying to do is to reduce the number of migrants in this country, not to maintain the number we've got with exact swaps with France. It's an absolute joke. And by the way, that Care for Calais mob, they were the ones who mounted a successful legal assault on the Rwanda scheme. Trust me, well, they've already said they're going to do the same about this 1 in, 1 out scheme, and I bet you they succeed. I bet you they succeed.
Of course they will. No, the charities which early on were helping out the migrants at Dover, at least one of them gave up because it said these are all 28-year-old men and they're all economic migrants. Sorry, you were all right about that. So, it's unless they are determined to stop the migrants by saying you're not allowed in at all, and that's it, an end to it, then this will never get sorted. It will never get sorted. And at the moment, Reform is the only party which looks as if it's possibly able to do that. But then Reform's also the party which is suddenly letting men dressed as women into women's prisons.
Yeah, we're going to do that a bit later in the show. I happen to know that behind the scenes at Reform Towers, they were not that thrilled by Vanessa Frank's statement about letting blokes into women's prisons.
I bet they're not.
Yeah, she didn't get the memo, and they perhaps should have done a bit more research about Ms. Frake, but we'll talk about that a bit later. But to go back to this swap a migrant, one in, one out, that Keir and Calamity Cooper are making a big deal about, it's just totally performative, isn't it? It's just something to say, something that might hit the headlines. No real resolve about trying properly to get to grips with the migrant crisis, and I don't know, maybe solve it. How about that?
Well, no, indeed. But that's because they will face the wrath of their backbenchers, including the ludicrous, she's not a backbencher, but leader of Brighton Council, Bella Skanky, or whatever her name is,
is she the one that's suing you?
She's the one who reported me to the police. Luckily, I rang the police and said, "You're doing anything about it?" And they said, no, we decided not to. I said, no, not about me, about her for wasting police time. And,
what did they say to that?
They said, we've decided to take no more action. Have you indeed? Right.
Unbelievable.
But she's a leading member of, I can't remember what it's called. It's called something like, everyone come in quickly, it's lovely here, or something. She was the leader of one of these refugee organisations which advises asylum seekers on how to circumvent any defences we have to stopping them staying here. She's been actively working against the government's agenda. You know, it's
yeah. So what's it they say? Say it out loud and clear. Refugees are welcome here. It's just this idea. These people just say, let everybody in. If you don't want to let everybody in, you're a racist and a fascist.
Yes, that's right.
These people, and one day, our body politic, Nigel Farage, I think may have already cottoned on, will work out that the way to win an election is to say, I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll turn the boats around in the middle of the channel, or we'll immediately deport them as soon as they arrive. That will win the next election. Why can't Labour see this? Is it because they don't want to solve this crisis?
It's because the left will murder them for it, and they are terrified of the left. We're not being governed by Sir Keir Starmer anymore. We're being governed really by Richard Plank-Bergen and the left-wingers. You know, they are deciding what happens, which is why we're not having welfare reform. They're deciding what happens on pretty much every issue at the moment. Israel, the same.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. They're dictating that narrative as well. What are you going to lead on in The Sun then this week, Rod, do you think?
I'm talking about how the government's lied to us about immigration in The Spectator, and I might well write about that in the Sun as well. Not just this government, but loads of governments, and suggesting that, you know, one hopes that the tide is turning.
Yeah. We've never had a prime minister like this that you could so openly say, you know, you could say it on the airwaves. Keir Starmer is a liar. He's a serial liar. So are so many members of his cabinet. We've never really had this before, that we have a government that openly lies and we can say so. It's extraordinary. We're going down the pan, if you ask me.
It is extraordinary. I think we've had a couple who've been there. I think Tony Blair wasn't always entirely honest, the truth. Nor indeed Boris Johnson, for that matter.
Oh, well, Boris Johnson, how could you tell if he was lying? His lips were moving. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lying is becoming more and more of a problem. Look forward to your various columns, Rod, and we'll talk again next week. Always a pleasure, mate. The great Rod Liddle there, as I say, columnist for The Sun, The Sunday Times and The Spectator, and you can listen to him on Saturday mornings on Times Radio from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m.